Warm welcome, everybody. Uh, Clearly, we will try to make this session a little bit more interactive and interesting for all of you because this is a session before lunch. And let me be honest with you, I'm in the midst of two astronauts, right? And I was having the conversation with Nando and Shantanu, and I thought I knew a little bit about tech, but I was just amazed by the kind of tech that both Nando and Shantanu was passionate and talking about it. Well, we will get into the topic, which is about trust, right? And to just kind of get my thoughts, opening thoughts on this, I've always believed that any business is really based on trust, right? Any relationships, for that matter, is based on trust. So that's the core. And today's world, if you look around that, right, we've got the plethora of technologies going. It is great. It is good. But most reports says that people do not have trust in tech. In fact, the State of the Connected Worlds Report 2023, 82% of the people actually said that they're not very sure about the digital tech they're using today. So does digital trust really matter? In my view, it is a question pretty clearly answered, that it matters a lot. From a firm perspective, from Grant Thornton, I just want to say a couple of things. One is we published the report, which is on the Tech Trends report. You can have a look at that report at our website. In fact, one of the first things that came out of the report is around digital trust. Apart many, many things. That's the first thing that came out. So we'll come back to the topic. So Shantanu, over to you. Talk us through why digital trust is important. What does digital trust mean to you?
All right. Thank you, Raja, and thank you, the audience. I know we are doing the last session before lunch, so we'll try to keep it engaging. Probably spend more time giving examples than sort of trying to define it theoretically. But let me start with a bit of a theoretical definition. Digital trust is the comfort that public, the institution, and the businesses have that the digital services that you're building for the past 20 plus years, and that are all encompassing our life increasingly, are secure. They are trustworthy, means they will do what they're intended to do, and they'll provide the values and services that they are meant to be without causing harm, right? It almost reminds me of, and I'm dating myself, Asimov's 3 laws of robotics: do no harm. So digital trust is roughly that, and plus a bit of it, right? So think of it this way. In India, we have been lucky that we have been building an infrastructure, first for identity, the Aadhaar, then for payments, the EPI, and now with the DigiLocker, where we have our personal data is being stored, your mark sheet, your driver licenses, your Aadhaar card, and other, right? We are actually now building what I call is a consent and trust layer, because once you start getting more and more of your data and more information on the digital space, right, trust becomes extremely important to be able to, but become extremely important for the ecosystem to go. Without a trust, the ecosystems at some point in time will probably stop growing as fast as it has grown, and it will also impede innovation. So it's very important, as our lives become more and more digital, that we start building the infrastructure for trust, both in the way of getting the right sort of laws and regulations, building the products and services, and importantly also building new technologies that sort of enforce it at the academia and the research places.
Shantanu, if I may ask, before coming to you to Nando, is some examples, right? We've seen actually cyber attacks to the plenty, right? It's all in the media news. But you talk about trust, but actually the opposite thing is happening. The kind of incidents that are going through. Any examples that you can cite which raises some alarm bells that why this is so critical now?
See, if you look at the number of incidents in terms of, so what's happening is, so let me give you a couple of examples. If you look at your phone today, you won't be able to guess, but an average phone has about 77 apps, right? I used to work for a B2C internet company, one of the world's largest. The number of times you touch your phone, this is even more jaw-dropping, is 1,400 times a day, an average person. All that data is being collected, right? So a typical company, a app on your phone will probably collect between 2 and 10 megs of data per day. And that's an astounding amount. And multiply that by 77, you don't use 77 at the same time, right? But you know, how much data is being collected. And every time a data breach happens, it happened with the credit rating agencies in the US. You know, I can't name them, but it happened with a bunch of other places. You know, well-known, and there was Cambridge Analytica that happened in the UK, where the data was being collected and processed in a way that was not expected to be. So all of these, there are plenty of examples of that in the past 5 years, and there's a growing sense that it seems to be increasing, right? Statistics, Nando, you might have some statistics about breaches and so. I don't know whether you or not.
We'll share some.
No, absolutely. And coming back to Nando, you've seen from a global perspective, right? You've seen the world, and obviously you spend time in consulting, you've worked in Cisco, many situations, and I know that you wanted to be an astronaut as well. But just help us today, from a global perspective, what do you see this trust? Does it matter?
Well, to me, I agree with everything Santanu said to start with. I will bring more the business angle from the corporations, right? And what I see is that the last 20 years, 25 years, arguably have been just the first stage of the real revolution of the internet digital economy. And I am curious because the survey you said most Indians, I assume, don't believe, or they are a bit concerned about the digital economy or sharing the data. The reality, though, is that you have 800 million internet users. You have 99% of the population with biometric cards. So there's got to be some trust there. You were talking about the UPI platform. Last January alone, 8 billion transactions. 13 lakh crore was, there's no other country in the world that has anything even similar to this. Nothing. You put it all together, all of Europe, India still 4 times more transactions. So there's definitely some trust there. But I don't think it can be taken for granted, which is your point, right? If you look at, we at Cisco conduct a survey on cybersecurity, and 81% of the respondents said that in the last year, they had at least one incident. And of those that the incident had an impact on the business, the 80% of them said that it cost them to fix it $100,000. So it's a combination of systems, data retrieval, plus ransomware, and 53% said that more than $500,000 to fix. So it's a real problem, and if we want to take the internet and the evolution of digital economy and social economy to the next level, it needs to be addressed.
Oh, absolutely, and I guess having set the context why it's important, maybe Nando, from your perspective, let's talk about the ecosystem, the organizations, right? The tech creators, the tech service providers. What do you see the organizations need to do? And you were also talking about that when a lot of people talk about digital trust, investing in security and risk management and governance, data governance, people talk about ROI, right? We chatted about that. So what is organizations doing? And help us to direct us what organizations should be doing in these times.
So rather than talking from a perspective of a vendor that we sell security products, I'll tell you what the CISO customers are telling me, the Chief Information Security Officers, right, CIOs. The last 2 months, I have the pleasure of meeting actually plenty of them, maybe 20 or so in the region. And the common feeling is one of exhaustion. So there's so many new threats coming. In fact, our Talos research group says that every day you have 76 new risk vulnerabilities identified and being publicized. On a given year, you have 20,000 plus. So now imagine that you are the CISO of a corporation and you need to address these risks. And out of the 20,000 you have on a given year, maybe only 5% have been exploited, less than 5%. But which one of the 5? It's a massive problem to deal with. And right now what they're doing is basically hiring more people, try to address it, creates friction between the security team and the IT team and the applications team. They don't want to stop the business. It's a reality. And one of the things that we think helps is bring, and I know that's one of the topics you also want to talk about, is artificial intelligence, right? So for example, on Kena Security, one of our portfolio, basically what it does is tell you with an accuracy of 98% which 5 you need to address out of 100. And that brings savings to the company, obviously, less risk, but most importantly, satisfaction in those teams that are really in dire straits right now. From a technology perspective, the malware that exists today, I was mentioned before about the breaches, some of the one in India, India Oil or Tata Power, they are well known, right? 30% of those are due to companies not implementing multi-factor authentication, which is a technology that is almost free today. And it actually, I struggle to understand why companies will not do this. But the truth is that the security answer is very complex. It requires what we in the industry call zero trust. You don't trust neither the person nor the device until they've proven that they actually can be trusted. And if there's any breach, how quickly, because there will be breaches, how quickly you quarantine that breach. All of that is enhanced by artificial intelligence. There's plenty of solutions in the market. That solves one of the questions. The other question is, as a company, you interact with other companies, other suppliers. They also need to be, the supply chain has to be trusted.
So the ecosystem needs
The ecosystem has to be trusted. That's a bit more complex because then you need to create a new security kind of standard or trust standard. And then you have an issue of talent, which is the one that we see that is really real all over the world. Just in India alone, 2 million jobs are seen as needed in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and we don't have those resources today. So it's a complex product, but there's things that you can do now already today to get into that journey.
Well, thanks, Nando. I think you've really touched upon a very important topic on talent, the need for talent and AI, right? Getting into cybersecurity and risk. Santanu, from a B2C perspective, right? Talk us through about what should the ecosystem be looking at. You touch a site today, you don't know what's going on. You make some calls around and you see suddenly some feeds coming to you. Is B2C a little different from B2B?
Thank you. Yes, B2C is rather different from B2B because, as I said, on your phone you have on an average 77 on a smartphone, right? So the challenge I think is many-fold, right? So for example, when you download a new app or go to a website to browse it, how many of them have in plain English have 3 statements? These are the data we collect from you. This is how we process it. And we do it because it brings this benefit to you. I looked at personally over 1,000 websites just over a period of time just to see if anyone says that. Not one, right? The documents that you see, if you went on the trust and privacy, the document you see there have been done by the best legal minds in the world, which means you and I cannot comprehend it, right? But on the other hand, if you want the digital ecosystem to grow, the first thing you need is, transparency. Unless we can bring transparency directly in front of consumers at a point when they start consuming, my fear is that with the newer and newer technologies coming in, at least a section of the society will get turned off, right? And say, I don't trust it anymore. Why are you collecting this? As I said, an average app does between 2 and 10 megs of data per day. Why you are doing it, right? Because the technologies today exist where you can avoid doing that. And if you have not done that, why are you doing it, right? My sense is that at some point in time, it will get much worse before it gets better, because someone will figure out that there's a competitive advantage of being trust first, which means you start with trust, and then you go from there, right? You say that, look, there's a website called, alternative to Google, DuckDuckGo, which actually tells you that they don't collect any data, don't collect the history, and so on and so forth. And there are people it's a minuscule number, but there are people who use it for their daily job, right? So eventually, I think it will flip, but it will have to get probably much worse, and probably a bunch of incidents like Cambridge Analytica and more will have to come at a global scale before it gets better.
You're scaring us. There's going to be something worse that's going to happen. But coming to the topic around AI, right? I can't but not ask the question about the current debate that's going on, ChatGPT, OpenAI, a lot of stuff going through. Attended something on education a couple of days back, and it's a big issue in not only the industry ecosystem but the education ecosystem. What's your view on that? You know, is people are saying coders will not exist, education system is going to change. And somebody talked about yesterday very nicely, he said that unless India, from a skilling perspective, doesn't take the leap to creative design thinking, then, you know, jobs may be really at risk. So your view on the AI things that's going on?
Sure. I can do one of two things. I can give, I think, what is the medium case scenario, or I can try to wake up everyone before lunch by giving a really scary answer. Which one would you like?
The scary one, right?
Scary.
I think the
The
scary
no, not the scary one. No, you do the scary
Scary.
one. You do the scary one. So I have, my view is that, look, it's not that different from what I call as an exponential technologies, right? In the past 40 years or so. 1980s, the semiconductor, I mean, you know, semiconductor started in 60s and 70s, right? But 1980s, it was, by then it was clear that semiconductor and the chips are going to be an exponential technology, right? Initially, there are a lot of talk about how it will displace a lot of work, automation, and so on. The tech jobs are one of the fastest growing areas of jobs, right? Had semiconductor been stopped and the government legalizing the no use of semiconductor, and it happened. In India, I have friends who work for, I don't know whether there's any veteran here, Wipro and HCL. They were telling me how they would go to like Coal India and other places, and they had a regulation. They had to fill out a form saying that by buying a computer, this will not displace a person. They actually had to give a declaration, right? I didn't work there, but so I heard the stories. Same with the internet in the 2000s, right? When the exponential technological internet came, and I worked for what I call as the Internet 1.0. I worked for AOL America Online, which brought first public internet in the world. Same set of arguments, right? If you're going to send email to each other, what will happen to the typist, right? Et cetera, right? But again, no one will argue that internet has shrunk the world and made a lot of people jobless. On the other hand, it essentially changed the way we all operate, right? So my sense about the medium case scenario, which is 2023 ChatGPT, is this is again going to be an assistive technology. The only difference between the semiconductor and the internet was both of them took 7-8 years before people could figure out the use cases. In ChatGPT's case, because everyone in the world is now trying to work with it, try it out, people think that they have figured out how to do the use cases, which is, you know, write a paper, ask questions on questions we should ask each other.
By the way, no, absolutely a fact. I haven't used ChatGPT for asking you the questions. I can be honest with that.
Absolutely, that's a use case. I knew. I probably should have figured that. So these are all assistive technologies, right? So it's cool, it's fun, right? But we haven't figured out how it will restructure the way we work. So I'll tell you. So I'll give you a hunch. What I have a hunch. So I run technology for a large bank. On an average day, I get somewhere between 300 and 500 emails, where people have gone through chains of. There's an email that I got that started. The chain started in 2021 October about replacing a system, and before I joined the bank, right? And the thread is still going on, and finally someone figured that the person who was dealing with is no longer with the company, and then they added me, right? So what is my job? 40% of my time is passed on summarization, which means reading from the bottom, going all the way up, and figuring out what happened, and then trying to make a decision. Now, ChatGPT is actually a very, very good summarization tool, right? It can actually summarize it for me. This is the chain of events and so on. So if an assistive technology like that comes and makes my 5 hours every day a bit more productive, I think that's a good thing, right? That I can engage in other activities that I haven't thought of. So I would not at this point worry about it. The thing that I worry about is probably AGI, which is one of the other topics that I sort of think about.
Sorry, what did you say?
AGI, the generalized intelligence, right? When that comes and when singularity starts hitting, then we may have to worry about a different order of magnitude problem. But hopefully you and I are retired by then and we won't have to worry about it.
That's an interesting anecdote to that. Your views, Nando? On
So from a business perspective, yesterday there was another discussion, and I was surprised to hear that actually they were seen as ChatGPT actually finally making AI take off. And I was wondering, but AI already took off. And it's, I look at our own company, for example, and all our products, all of them have AI. From the network security, I already talked about that, collaboration, instant language translation, that's an AI algorithm, right? Noise reduction, it's an AI algorithm. It's not simply a white space system as it used to be in the past. What if I told you that the answer I just gave you came from ChatGPT? I actually input that last night, and I put ChatGPT, and it gave me this answer about Cisco use of AI technology. So it doesn't tell you the content, but it gives you a way to summarize it and present it that is very easy to do, right, as I just did. I don't think that ChatGPT is going to dramatically change the use of artificial intelligence in the short term, but in the long term, it will definitely have an impact because it will make it more accessible for the normal person. The normal person today, AI is invisible. It's already in Google, in YouTube, in Netflix, in everything we do. Actually, the utility companies also have AI to see how your consumption patterns are, right? And of course, all the businesses, we are using AI, but it's invisible to the end user. ChatGPT is really going to make it visible. And I think it will be an augmentation, to your point, tool. It's not going to be a replacement. It's more something that helps you be more productive. If I had to answer the same question and search at every single product that Cisco have artificial intelligence, it might have taken me 10 minutes. ChatGPT took me 1 minute.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great. And I guess a quick thing around regulations, right? Tech has been pretty much outside of regulations for a long, long time, but things are getting a little hotter now with AI coming in. Just a quick answer, yes or no, do you see regulations coming in bigger in especially in AI and especially on ethics? Do you think that play between regulations and ethics becoming much more important?
I think it has to be a balance. It has to be a partnership between the private and the public sector and the individuals, right? You mentioned before about transparency. Most users don't know today what they are signed up for. So I think all of that is welcome. Privacy to me is human right? So that to me is something that has to be worked out. And as we start seeing the implications of these technologies, join partnerships between public and private, I think are required. That's where you get the best outcome.
So you see that happening
very
happening clearly. Santanu?
Okay. So I have a slightly different perspective. I'll not give a yes or no answer. I think it's the attempt to make it more user-friendly and more transparent has begun. For example, the Europe's GDPR, and Nando, I'm stealing the example from you. If you go to Europe and try to sign up on a website, they give you 3 choices, which is deny, accept all cookies, or accept selective cookies, at least 3, right? Now, very well-intended regulation to make everything transparent, but the darn thing is so complex. Now, if you say select cookies, it will pull up a list of hundreds of cookies. An average user has no idea which one to select and not select. So guess what?
Spend 1 minute or 2 trying to figure it out.
Exactly. And then you just press accept all cookies. So the intention and the consequences have been very, very different, right? So my sense has been for every technological problem we have created, there has always been a company that has eventually come and solved the technological problem. And typically, it's a combination of regulation, which is the government, the companies themselves, which may find there's a competitive advantage of being more transparent, and academia, which is trying to figure out how do you change that paradigm, right? So I'll give an example. The app, as I said, typically connects between 2 and 10 megs of data, right? So there is a new technology called federated learning, no longer new. It came out in 2017, 16 or 17, which essentially allows you, so for example, if you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and all, allows the compute to happen on your person. The reason why they collect the data is for personalization, right? They allow the compute to happen on your phone. The phones have gotten powerful enough that they have AI chip, and you can put essentially tiny programs in your phone. So the compute happens on the phone, and then the inferences, the parameters get sent to the central model, right? So as a result of that, you no longer transfer the data, you transfer a part of the model, and instead of collecting, say, 2 meg, 5 megs of data, you collect less than 10K and sometimes less than 1K of data per day. So that's a paradigm shifting technology, right? And it came out of academia because people are concerned about the privacy. They had solved it, right? So I have a hope that if you connect 3 of them together, it will eventually get to a solution, and it will be better for all of us.
Well, that's great, Santanu. I think you've touched upon government, we touched upon industry, we also talked about academia, and I think we are also trusting the time as well because time is running short. But I think I just want to summarize some of this conversation into one thought I had, which is trust is about the ecosystem, right? We got to connect with each other, right? It's not fragmented, and I think I just got to maybe summarize this with one story which something resonates with me. This is about a sport, which is cricket, and which Fernando maybe you're not so fascinated about it, but about cricket. But it's about a very successful Indian captain, MS Dhoni. And this was about the World Cup. This was the preparation of the Indian World Cup 2011. And the coach was Gary Kirsten. And they were all preparing to go for a commando training at some place in India. And they were all waiting to take the bus. And the captain came in and was taking the bus and suddenly sees the coach not taking the bus. It was Gary Kirsten, a South African, and asked the coach that why you're not taking the bus. He said, you guys carry on because we can't take the bus because of security reasons, because it's a commando training. So that kind of training for the cricketers was going on. Dhoni looked at the coach and said, we are not going. If we go as one team. Well, Gary Kirsten says, till today, that's what trust means. It's not words in action. It's different that India won the World Cup and all of that happened. But I think what's the point here? The point here, as a tech ecosystem, I think we all need to come together. It's not about one versus the other. And if that was going to happen, creating the trust means taking the small but important actions and not words. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it for you. Of course, the 2 astronauts, if I may say, are for you over lunch available. And with that, I think digital trust not only matters, it is important for the society at large. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Raja, Nando, and Shantanu.
For more interesting content, like, comment, and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.